Hello and welcome to another top 5 PS4 couch co-op games and split screen games. Of course, I am broadcasting from the epicenter of the lockdown in the UK, and a big shout out to all health staff and any nurses or key workers that are helping keeping this country afloat. So let's crack on. Actually, don't crack on, follow the government guidelines. If you are couch co-oping, especially with more than 2 people, please make sure you all obey the government guidelines. Right, if you're not familiar with my format, I pick out 5 PlayStation 4 games, I put them in ranked order, shittest first, and they're all going to be couch co-op, all going to be split screen. I am cryptical. I had to Google it. Cryptical, it means ambiguous, like a puzzle, like cryptic. Obviously not AAA, lovely, adorable, let's say adorable art style, not the most expensive game, $10, not available physical and out on the PlayStation Network at the moment. This map design is just like the one in Slay the Spire, which is an amazing game. Is this an amazing game? Well, you're seeing exactly what you're getting. I do like the fact that you can have 4 people in it and that you've all got your stats on screen all the time. I think that takes up quite a lot of the screen space, but that's cool. It's a retro idea as well. Notice all of the little bells and whistles and the add-ons and the jewels and the XP meter and stuff. This game isn't, two-dimensional at all. It also pushes the idea of XP on the fly and doing runs. So it looks like this game is all about that one run where you open up and get all the cool stuff, all the cool drops, etc., and make yourself powerful enough to get through the other level. It's a retro 4-player twin-stick shooter. It's in a market that's got a hell of a lot of competitors. On a 2-player level, this is not as good as Children of Mortar. Children of Mortar was my game of 2019. It's a saturated market, to be fair. What does this game offer that the others don't? I would say a lot of depth with item drops and how they work. You've got a scroll system. On X you can press if you find a decent scroll and you can stack them up, and some of them are really awesome. You do have a slide and dash, and you have a special on the shoulder buttons. It's also got these funny little arcade machines that come up that you put money into that turn into a side scroller all of a sudden. Great idea. Being number 5 on my list is not as strong as the other games that are coming up, but I do like it a lot, and I have a lot of time for good twin-stick shooters, especially cheap ones, and especially local multiplayer ones, and ones that look retro. So a lot of ticks on that list there. A lot of almost procedural generation with what room you're going to come up to and what boss type you get at the end. We had 3 or 4 different boss types on a number of different playthroughs just at the end of our map. So I like that idea a lot. Iron Cryptical, number 5 on the list. Call the lawyers. Streets of Red. How are they allowed to do that? But this is a blatant side-scrolling beat 'em up in the vein of Streets of Rage. But we have also a very saturated market on this front as well. The amazing River City Girls and of course Castle Crashers, both being available on the PlayStation 4 now, means that this pedestal is a very crowded one. But this one's very much in the vein of a zombie apocalyptic 8-bit side-scroller, right down to the funny little flashy moves and character design and voices.
This will come in handy just in time. This will come in handy.
Not bad.
Characters also have this cool thing where they're their alter egos. You saw at the beginning there that I picked the janitor and he had a mop, but in the actual game he's a knight with a shovel. Oh blimey, lawsuit again. And of course she's in a mech and she said some really weird stuff as well. They're both actually kind of very strange characters, but also very, very different. I got the chance to try out a couple more characters on the single player, and I'll show you some footage of that in a bit. There's a ninja guy who's got a completely different moveset. I love the noise of the game, but beware, it does come out of the pad on what seems like a compulsory basis. And I was fiddling around with the options in the PlayStation operating system, but you can go in and turn the volume down on the pads. It got really annoying to make sure you do that. This is footage of the ninja guy. So you're prompted to do a finisher move to get more of that blue stuff to make sure you can keep doing finisher moves. And you build on that. And there's also loads of environmental hazards that you can trigger onto the enemies themselves. Positioned at around $12 and not available physical. And I've just noticed there is a deluxe edition, and it does support the PlayStation Pro. Not too sure where the system CPU is used there, maybe to keep the frame rate up. It does get hella busy on screen. That's one thing I love about this game. It's a hell of a lot more going on than those aforementioned titles at points, with the flashy specials and the noise, and it does a very good job with boss design. They're really awesome character, cartoony and crazy. Being a solid fan of this genre does really help with liking this game. It's not going to be accessible for everybody, and it's certainly not for all the family. But Streets of Red is a really cool retro side-scrolling beat-em-up. Okay, so there's quite a lot of explaining to do with this one. This one would have been a lot higher on the list. There's a caveat with it, and it becomes apparent once you open up the second player mode. So that's what I want to discuss, is that Sparklight is very, very good when it comes to single player, but you have to open up a lot of the game and defeat the first boss in order to enjoy that content. And what you're also looking at here is my hub that I've spent hundreds of those silver things on, and them silver things, you might notice some jadedness in my voice here, because man, I got put through the grinder when I played this game. It's so hard. It looks so kind, but it's made by psychopaths. It's made by a pair of lunatics. I think they're brothers actually, but man, did it school you. It's so hard. It's basically Hyper Light Drifter, if you can imagine that move setup, but it again, it's got a few secrets. It just doesn't prepare you to how much of an onslaught you face when you go out again doing these runs on this planet. But this is footage of the first boss. I wanted to include it because you're introduced to him really early, like on a Souls-like, where he kills you and it's like, oh, and explains the respawn mechanics to you. But man, it's so the single player, I got really addicted to the single player because I knew I had to get the co-op ready for this video. So I got to play, I think it must have been about 3.5 hours. I think I might have made a bit of a meal of that. Maybe it was 2 hours. But if you purchase this, you've got to make sure you're into the genre and enjoy the sort of content you're seeing first, because it is not a two-player from the get-go. It's also, so far, the most expensive game and available physical, to my knowledge. I've been Googling around, I've seen one. It's not a limited run either. We're going to get to limited run in a second, Michael. Interesting subject, that. But this is your day-to-day gameplay. Those pigs, man. I've worked out those pigs. The way they chat and just moving around them. They hit you, they take 2.5 hearts. That nothing drops hearts. The game hates you. But look at the other player. So the other player's controlling my little robot friend. You don't have a gun, and you have like a grabber, the sort of thing you'd see at a fairground. It's not an integral role, and you can switch roles at any point. Another game that did this was Child of Light, but Child of Light did it so that in combat you had an effect. And I don't want to call this too early, but I don't think you have that much involvement in the combat. It's for the puzzles, etc. Now, strangely enough, I'm also reviewing another game at the moment called Songbird, and Songbird is almost identical to the setup as Sparklight, with this little thing following around, with the fact that it is two-player, but again, I am knee-deep in the one-player and I haven't come to it yet. So that's a shame, but I wanted to include this in the list as well. It's not, don't worry, and again, it's also a bit too similar to having a single list, but there's something to look out for there. The second player does have involvement, but it's not enough, I don't think, to warrant it as a true two-player. Yes, someone thought to shamelessly plagiarise Adventure Time with a side-scroller two-player game in the form of The Adventure Pals. Now, I obviously got really miffed at how similar this art design is and everything is to the classic cartoon, but it actually does flesh itself out as an individual idea. An extremely good looking and well produced two-player side-scrolling platformer. Now let's think who we've got on this circuit when it comes to this type of game, and one comes to mind immediately, and it's Rayman Legends, which hasn't featured on the channel for years, and it's a game that really does shine when it comes to good looking two-player fun side-scrolling platforming. This one is damn close. I mean, look how adorable it is, and it's quite easy on front end, but I have been experimenting with some of the more difficult stuff on the one player, and let me tell you, it can push back. You've got an attack button, a jump button, there's no wall slide button. Actually jumping on the walls is all done by pushing just one direction, which takes some getting used to. I'm used to left, right, you know the deal. The combat isn't mind-blowing. What is mind-blowing is the tongues of the giraffes, and one of the giraffes has got a unicorn horn. They act as helicopters when you're doing that slow descent. Love that. It's the classic format where you get given an open world map and you get given quests and you get given a choice to go to various different types of level in no particular order. That's a really cool idea, and it was obviously dreamt up by Nintendo, but it's nice to see a modern platformer exist to that and have a choice onto what level you go to next. When it comes to enemy types, there is a little bit of a hierarchy and things can get quite confusing. It does prompt you to do a counter, which I haven't quite got my head around yet. You can press the opposite button direction. This is the this is the map. Look at how amazing. And there's a central village and loads of characters. You start in the lighthouse, really adorable characters and some really great sound design. It's kind of got this fantastic Mr. Fox vibe meets Adventure Time. It's very well made. You can't ignore how high the production is and how everything marries up really well visually, on an audio level, and just with how the structure and characters and story works. It massively pushes exploration within the maps and scores you with these cupcakes that you'll find that are off the beaten track, and that's a big draw because they can be traded in. You have a card system or a perk system that you get when you level up, so there is some RPG elements in here. It's not shallow by any stretch of the imagination. It also has environmental hazards and puzzles that relate to what you've opened up, a bit like Metroid, certain bits of the map you won't be able to go to, and you use this switch thing, which is actually the giraffe's head, to open up different platforms that give you access to different areas that are tiered, so you may revisit a map, etc. So there's a hell of a lot going on, and of course it's really accessible for a younger person. But if you're a hardcore platformer like me and you want that bit of depth, you've got both of those things in droves here, and just looking at it and listening to it is a complete pleasure. Coming in at around $14.99, £12. Again, it's slightly more expensive than the previous games, but you certainly get your money's worth here. You really do, and I'd love to see this game go free because the whole family would really enjoy it. Only 2-player though. 4-player I think would be a bit too hectic because it's quite flashy and because there's quite a lot of stuff going on. You'd struggle to find out which one of the individuals on screen you actually are. Funny in-game characters and sort of trading posts and funny little villages with crazy people walking around it. There's humans, there's animals. The dialogue's really snappy. The writers, you can tell, are quite self-aware. They know that not just children are going to be playing this game. It really does offer quite a lot of content for all ages. Is it as good as Rayman Legends? No. Is it one of the better 2-player side-scrolling platform games on the PlayStation 4? Yes. There is a lot on the market, but this one is nice and new, nice and friendly, nice and good looking, and it's got a guaranteed front end that's going to engage everybody. It isn't a roguelike, it isn't going to smash your face in from level 1, it's going to ease you in and have a lot of fun with lots of bright, cool sounds. Judging by my audience demographic, I think the majority of you probably remember the original of this game, and I actually have a confession to make. I didn't play the original of this game. I saw loads of it though, way back 10, 25 years ago on the, I think it was on the Mega Drive, right? It was kind of a flagship title for that higher echelon of gamer who were, you know, into the hip hop scene and doing cool stuff, but Toe Jam and L was just, man, the 90s in this is strong, bro. Explaining it is also going to be a hell of a lot of fun as well. So, Toe Jam and L, okay, so it's an ARPG really, isn't it? On an asymmetric, but so what you're doing is you're looking for these pieces of this ship. and you're also avoiding enemies. Now, you don't have an attack button, so to speak, but you do have these presents, these boxes that you open, that can have any random thing in them, and some of the things can be really good, and some of the things can be really bad. Good stuff will either help you avoid the enemy or give you some sort of perk. The bad stuff will send you down a floor, which is what you don't want. You're looking for these elevators, right? Look at that Hawaiian dancer. So you can use the other enemies to cheese the other enemies. If you bring an enemy over to the Hawaiian dancer, they stop and have to dance. And this lift is a fake lift that takes me down, not up. And you only just clock it when those doors shut. There's so many little things in here like this. The designers were on some amazing drugs.
Beep, 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 boop.
The co-op idea in this game is kind of compulsory. It is really dreamt up to have fun with someone else because you can go to the other floors. You're not tied at the hip. I'll show you that in a second. But I love the idea that there's loads of characters to choose from. I just thought there were two. There might be two in the original. This is a remaster and it's had a sort of 21st century makeover. So they might have added those new characters there. And they all have their own stats like walk speed and damage, and people and other characters can scan items and see what's in them. The trees will have presents in them and stuff. So it really does help to have different characters complement each other. When it comes to the stats, that's the ARPG thing. Whoa! We just got a voluntary split on the screen. Absolutely genius. That's one thing it does so well, is the merge on the split. So it's really all about exploration. On the right hand corner of the screen, you can see my map screen, and there's a tile that's revealed, and that's the tile that I've clocked. There are perks that allow you to turn over different tiles, and walking around the map obviously opens up tiles, and you're basically, process of elimination, searching each floor for a piece of this ship. Mundane that might sound, but it's the enemy types, man, that just keep me coming back, especially this superfan and that caveman dude.
Oh, look! Sign my game. Sorry.
The enemies can also be bribed to work for you, or they might have a power that disables other enemies, or you might even open a box that's got a projectile weapon in it. You see there that there's a catapult available. The madness is everywhere, and you're so indulged in what you're doing on your screen that you don't really pay attention to what's. You're both playing separate games, and by chance, you'll run into each other on the same map, and it'll be like, "Hi, how you doing?" Getting the new boxes, opening them, and seeing the perk or seeing the reverse perk, and just the amazing stuff that you find in these boxes, like the rocket shoes or like the wings, but you could just go invisible, you can turn time. There's so many variants on these presents, a bit like the Binding of Isaac actually, with the amount of stackable different things that you can unlock. It's huge. There's also sub-levels as well, a side-scrolling sub-level, the second game on this list that's got one of them, which is almost rhythm-based and completely crazy and retro. Man, the love for this game is massive. I'm so glad I've got it now, and I'm so gutted that I didn't play it 25 years ago. I think that this may have been one of the early procedural generation map games, because it does pride itself on having a different map layout on each floor and different enemy position on each map that you load up. I don't know the actual maths on that, but that's very interesting, and it does rely on giving you a new floor that you may have not seen before with different layouts and different enemy types. There's also quite funny foods lying around. Some of the foods give you health and some of them don't, like there's rotten cheese, and you have to like look at something and think, will that make me ill? Won't it make me ill? You don't get more 90s than eating a block of rotten pizza. Uniquely, I'm not looking at this game through a pair of rose-tinted nostalgia glasses. I'm judging it on its own merit as a game today, and it does very, very well. Its reputation precedes it, obviously, because I'm an old gamer, but it was really surprising how engaging a format and remaster this is. It's incredible, to be fair, and it's a great title. Whoa! It's 12 quid on the PlayStation Store, so again, higher end. And, Marcus, what I noticed, it's 50 quid available physical on Limited Run. Limited Run do Vita games as well, don't they? Headphone users, watch out. You're dead!
Beep, 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 boop.